Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. How are you guys? Trust that you are guys are doing good. Today we will be discussing one topic of the CA Foundation, an important topic in CA Foundation exam. It covers around 4 to 8 marks in the examinations. Okay. So before proceeding with the chapter, the exact chapter that is depreciation accounting, we need to understand the meaning of depreciation and we need to understand why do we need to charge depreciation. That is, why do we need to charge depreciation. So these topics won't be tested in the exam, but from a practical perspective, you should be aware that what is the meaning of the top chapter that we are studying and why are we studying that and what is the implication of that in the practical life, so that you are much more mature than the theoretical knowledge. Okay, so coming to the meaning, first is meaning of depreciation. The meaning of the depreciation is reduction in the value of assets. So there are three terminologies used here, that are reduction in the value of the assets. Now we have to understand why do we need to reduce the value and which type of assets do we need to depreciate. Okay, so assets are of two types, that are tangible and that are intangible. Okay, so I understand that you already know the meaning of tangible and intangible assets, as it was already discussed in your basics of accounting chapter, that is the first chapter of your CA foundation. Okay, still I'll give you a brief understanding of this. So tangible assets are the assets which can be touched and felt, okay, but intangible assets are the assets which cannot be touched. Okay, that does not have any physical form, and intangible assets are the assets which does not have any physical form, and this can only be felt, not touched. Sir, can you please give us an example of it? Yeah, tangible assets are your, like a mobile, it can be touched, like your laptop, it can be touched, or like any machinery placed in a factory. These are called tangible assets. So then what is the example of intangible assets? Any application in your cell phone, any application in your laptop, any software that you are using, okay, like Windows 10 or like any other software that you are using in your system, or like trademarks, brand name, patents. So all these things are called intangible assets. Okay, sir, do we need to charge depreciation on both tangible assets and intangible assets? Yes, we need to charge depreciation on both. But depreciation on intangible assets is called amortization. And this is altogether a separate discussion. So we will not be studying about amortization of intangible assets in the later parts of this chapter. Okay, so we will be focusing on depreciation of tangible assets. Okay, so we can say the meaning of depreciation is reduction in the value of tangible assets. Now you understand that you need to charge depreciation on tangible assets, but now comes the meaning of reduction. So for this we need to understand why do we need to charge depreciation. Okay, why do we need to charge depreciation? So first reason for why we are charging depreciation is, suppose the life of the machines, whenever we are purchasing any machine, that has a life defined for it. Okay, like suppose if I purchase a laptop, that has a life defined of 3 to 4 years. Okay, so that is a life defined of it. So whenever we are using any machine, the capacity of it or the efficiency of it reduces over time. Why? That is due to wear and tear of the asset, right? So suppose we have purchased a machine costing rupees 1 lakh and that has a life of suppose 5 years. Okay, so plotting this on number graph, 1 2 3 4 5. Suppose in the first 2 years that the machine has a capacity of generating producing 10,000 pens per year, and this reduces to, in the third and the fourth year, this reduces to around 7.5 thousand per year, 7,500 per year, and this again subsequently reduces to only 5,000 per year. So why is this capacity getting decreased? Why is this capacity getting decreased? This capacity is getting decreased due to wear and tear of the asset. Let's ignore machinery now. Consider a human being. So as a human being grows old, the capacity of the human being reduces. Why? Because he gets tired more and more as he grows old. That's why the capacity of the person decreases as he grows old. So one of the major reason why we depreciate is due to wear and tear of the asset. Okay. Sir, then you will ask me, sir, is that the only reason why we need to charge depreciation? No, that is not the only reason why we charge depreciation. The depreciation is also charged due to other reasons, and one of the major other reasons is matching concept. What is the matching concept now? So this matching concept, as I think this you have already studied in the first chapter of your CA foundation, that is basics of accounting. So matching concept says whenever you are recording any income, so all the corresponding costs for that also needs to be recorded in the same year. So suppose now let me explain this matching concept in this arena. Okay. So what it says. Suppose continuing with our old example, suppose a machine has a life of 5 years, as we discussed, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? And this machine produced 10,000 pens here, same here, and 7,500 here, same here, and 5,000 here, right? So we will record, and supposing we sold 100% of our produce, so we will record income. Right, we will record income for this, and we will record corresponding costs also for this. Whatever the costs are, that we will also record. So, and for producing these pens, we purchased the machinery, right? We purchased the machinery to produce those pens, and the cost of the machine was rupees 1 lakh. The cost of the machine was rupees 1 lakh. So don't you think this 1 lakh rupees was spent? This 1 lakh rupees was spent to produce these units of pen. These units of pen. So apart from these costs, this 1 lakh rupees also needs to be allocated in all the 5 years, right? And this allocation is called depreciation. So this is because of the matching concept that we need to charge depreciation, because the cost that suppose whenever we are recording income and cost and arriving at a profit or loss figure, so this profit or loss won't be correct unless and until we will record depreciation of the machine which was used to produce these pens, because this machines was purchased specifically to produce these pens. So it won't be correct if we not record this rupees 1 lakh as costs for these pens, as we will not record the cost for these pens. So we need to record this as a cost. So that is why we charge depreciation. So till now we studied that depreciation is the reduction in the value of tangible assets, and we will not depreciate intangible assets because that are getting amortized. The depreciation of intangible assets are called amortization, and that is altogether a separate discussion which we will discuss in CA Inter, not now. Okay. And coming to the second thing which we studied was, why do we need to charge depreciation? So we need to charge depreciation due to various reasons. Why? First reason is wear and tear of the asset, because due to wear and tear of the asset, the capacity of the asset reduces, and hence we need to charge depreciation. Due to passage of time, as the even if we are not using the asset and is kept standby, that also we need to charge depreciation. Why? Because that asset was available for use, but we didn't use it. That is a separate thing, but that was available for us to use, so then also we need to charge depreciation on that. The third reason is due to matching concept and correct recording of the cost, correct measurement of the cost, that we need to charge depreciation. So these all are the reasons why we need to charge depreciation. Okay, now after studying why we need to charge depreciation and meaning of depreciation, let us now move towards how do we need to charge depreciation. How do we need to charge depreciation? Okay, now our third topic is how do we need to charge depreciation. So for that, the standard says depreciation is the systematic allocation of depreciable amount over its useful life. Now you have a question in your mind, sir, what is the meaning of systematic allocation? Question number 1. Sir, what is the meaning of depreciable amount? Question number 2. Sir, what is the meaning of useful life? Question number 3. Let us now study all these 3 points one by one. So first we will study what is depreciable amount, then we will study what is useful life, then we will study what is systematic allocation. Okay, I am rubbing this and then I will again note it down after I have discussed all those 3 points. Now first let us discuss what is depreciable amount. So depreciable amount is original cost of the asset. Depreciable amount is the cost of the asset minus its residual value. Cost of asset less its residual value. Now again you have a question in your mind, sir, what is the meaning of the cost of asset and what is the meaning of residual amount? I will explain these both to you. So the cost of the asset is the purchase price of the asset, plus any non-refundable taxes. What are non-refundable taxes? I will specifically explain you. Plus an important point I am noting down here, just focus importantly here. So any other directly attributable cost, any other directly attributable costs incurred by the management to bring the asset in the location and condition to make the asset capable of being operated in a manner intended by management. So what is the meaning of this line? So this line means any expenditure incurred by the management, any expenditure incurred by the person who has purchased this asset, any expenditure incurred by that person which is directly attributable to the purchase, to bring that asset in the location where I want to use it and in the condition where how I want to use it. So sir, please explain me this with the help of an example. I am totally getting confused now. Okay, suppose I have purchased a machinery in Chennai, but I want to use that in Bangalore. So any cost incurred to bring that machinery to Bangalore will form part of my cost of the asset. And so the machine which I purchased was in dismantled form, okay, dismantled. Like so, some machine has suppose 4 parts. Those were 4 parts were separated, but I don't want to use that separate parts. I want to use the machine as a whole. So what I will do after the machine reaches Bangalore, I will just again install the asset in my plant, install the asset in my factory. So any cost incurred to install the asset will also form part of my cost of my asset, will also form part of the cost of the asset. Okay, so sir, the location was Bangalore, so any cost incurred to bring the asset to the Bangalore factory will be capitalized. Okay, so I cannot use the asset in dismantled form, so I got it installed at my premises. Okay, any cost incurred to bring that asset in the condition, that is for machine as a whole, will also form part of the asset, will also form part of the cost of the asset, will also form part of the cost of the asset. Intended by management means I intend to use the machine as a whole, not the parts separately. So that is what is my intention, condition. I intended to use the machine in Bangalore, not in Chennai. That is why we capitalized the transportation cost of the machine from Chennai to Bangalore. Okay, so cost of the asset is the purchase price of the asset plus any non-refundable taxes. Sir, what is the meaning of non-refundable taxes? So taxes which will not be refunded to us in any manner, are called non-refundable taxes. This will be specifically given to you in the examination, that these taxes are refundable or these taxes are not refundable. Okay, and any other directly attributable costs we incurred by the management to bring the asset in the location and condition to make the asset capable of being operated, to make the asset capable of being operated in a manner intended by the management, in a manner intended by the management. So this is the cost of the asset. Now we will come. So okay, before going to residual amount, I will explain you with the help of an example also. Okay, suppose we purchased the asset for rupees 1 lakh. Okay, and we paid a non-refundable taxes of rupees say 10,000. Any other, like we incurred transportation costs of rupees suppose 5,000, and we incurred installation costs of rupees say 2,000, and we also incurred fire insurance premium. We took a insurance for this asset and we paid fire insurance premium for this asset, insurance premium of rupees 1,500. Sir, tell me which all costs will form part of the cost of the asset. Purchase price, yes, it will form part of the cost of the asset. Yes, it will form part. Again, non-refundable taxes, no, it will not form part. Yeah, non-refundable taxes, it will form part of the cost of the asset. But if the question mentioned that these taxes will be refundable to the company, then these will not form part of the cost of the asset. But since these are non-refundable, these will form part of the cost of the asset. Okay. Transportation cost to bring the asset from Chennai to Bangalore will form part of the cost of the asset. Okay, in the location where the management wants to use the asset. Okay, installation cost, yes, it will get capitalized because it is bringing the asset in the condition in which the management wants to use the asset. Now comes fire insurance premium. So is this expenditure incurred to bring the asset in the location? No. In the condition? No. So this will not form part of the cost of the asset. Okay. These are the points that you need to keep in your mind when assessing cost of the asset. Now let us move towards residual value. Okay, so we will study what is residual value now. So residual value is an estimate. Residual value is an estimate made by the management. Sir, what is the meaning of an estimate? Okay, I'll explain you. First, let me write this. What is the residual value? Then I'll explain what is the estimate. Residual value is an estimate made by the management of what? Of the realizable value. Realizable value or sale value or scrap value that the entity will realize towards the end of the useful life, after the end of the useful life. Okay, so what is an estimate? Estimate is an expectation made by the management, of what is the realizable value, of how much amount that the entity will realize after the useful life. Okay, I will explain you this meaning of estimate with the help of an example. Suppose you want to purchase a jeans. Then you went to your dad. Dad, I want to buy a jeans, give me money. Then dad will ask you, how much money do you want? Then you will make an estimate in your mind considering all the factors like what is the price in the online, what is the price that you discussed with your colleagues, what is the price you discussed with your friends. Okay, so considering all those in mind, you will tell that on an expectation basis, on an approx basis, it will cost me 3000 rupees. Then how did you arrive at this rupees 3000? So that was an estimate made by you. It can change also, the actual price can change also, but that was an estimate that you made in your mind. Okay, so estimate are expectations made by the management, because this value the management will realize at the end of the useful life, not now, at the end of the life of the asset, not now. So the management will realize at the end of the useful life. So it is an estimate or an expectation as of now. Okay, it is an expectation as of now. So what is the amount that the entity will realize for on selling the asset after the useful life of the asset? Now comes what is the useful life. Okay, let us discuss what is the useful life. So useful life of the asset is the period. It is a period over which, again, this is also an estimate. This is also an estimate. Sir, how many times estimate will come? And okay, so residual value is also an estimate, or useful life is also an estimate. So, sir, is it that say the cost of the asset is also an estimate? No, this is not an estimate. Not an estimate. This is the actual, because you have already incurred this. But this you will realize in future, and this is the period of the life of the asset that the entity expects now. The entity has not used till now that for that life, but entity makes an estimate. So the residual value is an estimate, useful life is an estimate, but cost of asset is not an estimate. So what is useful life? Useful life is an estimate made by the management for the period over which the entity expects, the management expects, or the company expects to use it. Over what period the management expects to use it. That period is called the useful life of the asset. Okay, I'll just little bit deviate from the topic. I'll just give you one practical scenario for this, which will not be tested in your exam, but that is required for your practical knowledge. But because what I want is that whenever you are studying any topic, you should have all the knowledge surrounding that topic, not only the theoretical knowledge which will be tested in the exam. Okay, so for companies, specifically for companies, useful life is already determined by the Companies Act, that is Schedule 2 of Companies Act, already determined. So the Schedule 2 of Companies Act establishes the life of all types of assets, all types of assets. It says that for this category of assets, this will be the life of the asset. For this category of assets, this will be the life of the asset. To maintain the comparability, because if the different companies will take different life of same assets, then we will not be able to compare their financial statements. Okay, so now again you should ask me a question, that the life which is determined by the Companies Act, can the companies take any life other than that? Yes, they can take it, but they have to justify it why they are taking any other life. So they have to justify it why they are taking less life or why they are taking more life of the asset. Okay, so they have to justify that. So till now we studied what is the meaning of depreciation, that is reduction in the value of tangible assets. Then we studied why do we charge depreciation. Then we studied how do we need to charge depreciation. That is, depreciation is the systematic allocation of depreciable amount over its useful life. So in this we studied what is depreciable amount and what is useful life. Systematic allocation is still pending. So before going to systematic allocation, I want to explain one more thing, that is depreciable amount. I told you that in depreciable amount the formula is cost of the asset, less its residual value. But this is a formula, you should know why we understand the cost of the asset should be depreciated, but why are we reducing residual value out of it? That we need to understand, because you should not mug up the formula, rather you should understand the logic behind that. Then you don't need to mug up the formula itself. Then in all the circumstances, if you know the logic, then in all the circumstances without knowing the formula also you can solve the sums. So this cost of the asset, we understand that we have already incurred this cost, so this cost needs to be allocated over the life of the asset. Okay, but why are we reducing residual value? We are reducing residual value because a portion of this cost is getting realized as residual value, is getting realized. So we will only depreciate the unrealized portion of it. We will depreciate only the unrealized portion of it. Suppose you have incurred the cost of rupees 1 lakh, okay, and you have estimated that residual value is rupees 10,000. So if I ask you what is the net amount that you have spent in purchasing this asset, so the net amount is rupees 90,000 only, not rupees 1 lakh, not rupees 1 lakh. So this 90,000 only needs to be depreciated, not 1 lakh. We need to depreciate only 90,000 because this is the amount, that is we have realized out of this amount. So this amount should not be depreciated, Okay. Now after this, again going to the how do we need to charge depreciation? Depreciation is the systematic allocation of depreciable amount over its useful life. Okay, and we studied what is the depreciable value and how do we need to arrive at the amount of depreciable value and what is the meaning of useful life. Now we will understand the meaning of systematic allocation. Systematic allocation. Okay, so systematic allocation of what? Allocation of depreciable amount and over its useful life. Okay, let's suppose depreciable amount is rupees 90,000 and the life of the asset is say 3 years. So can we say, so it says allocation of depreciable amount over its useful life. So can we say this, that over its useful life I can depreciate 50,000 here, I can depreciate 2,000 here, and I can depreciate the rest, that is 38,000 here. Can I do this? No. The reason being, it is not saying only allocation, it is saying systematic allocation. So this allocation cannot be on an ad hoc basis. This has to be systematic. Sir, then what is the meaning of systematic? This systematic itself means the various methods of depreciation. The various methods of depreciation is what is called systematic. Methods of depreciation is called systematic allocation. So if it is one only allocation, then we would have allocated the depreciable amount over its useful life in any manner as we wished. But that is not the case. We need to allocate it in a systematic manner, and so there are various methods prescribed by the standard. So accordingly, which method suits the entity best, which method suits the assets best, depending on the use of the asset or and any other important factors that needs to be considered. Considering all those points, we need to pick up a suitable method of depreciation, and then in that manner we need to allocate this depreciable amount over its useful life. Okay, so we understood this. Now our discussion should be methods of depreciation. So before going to methods of depreciation, we will discuss the journal entries for depreciation accounting. So before going to methods of depreciation, we will focus on journal entries for depreciation accounting. So before going to journal entries also, I just want you to recall the modern method of accounting, which says whenever any asset increases, we will debit it. This is already discussed in the chapter 1 of CA Foundation. Okay, that is the basics of accounting. So whenever any asset increases, we debit it. Whenever any asset decreases, we credit it. Whenever any liability increases, we credit it, and when it decreases, we debit it. Whenever any expense increases, we debit it, and when it decreases, we credit it. Correct? So now coming to journal entries. First journal entry will be of purchase of asset. So whenever you are purchasing any asset, what are the accounts that are getting impacted? One is the asset account, right? And assuming that it is whenever we are purchasing any asset, we need to pay, right? Assuming that it is paid by bank account. So other account which will be getting impacted is bank account. Okay. So asset is getting increased or decreased. With the purchase, the asset will increase. And since we have paid through bank account, the balance in the bank account will reduce. So it will decrease. So asset is getting increased, so we will debit it. Bank account again being an asset, it is decreasing, we will credit it. So what is the journal entry that is coming out of it? Journal entry is asset account debit to bank account. Okay. Second journal entry for depreciation. For passing the journal entry of this, you recall the meaning of depreciation. Meaning of depreciation was reduction in the value of assets. So which all the asset accounts are getting impacted? One account is asset account. It is getting reduced, reduction in the value. Okay, so it is getting decreased. The other account is expense account, depreciation expense account. Depreciation expense account, and this expense is increasing due to depreciation. So asset is decreasing, so it will get credited, and the expense is increasing, so it will get debited. Okay. So what is the journal entry that is coming out of it? The journal entry is coming depreciation expense account debit to asset account, to asset account. Okay, so this is a journal entry for recording depreciation expense. Now we will study the approach of depreciation accounting. Like this is the approach 1. This we can say approach 1. Approach 1. What is the approach 2? So you should not be confused between the approach of a depreciation accounting and methods of depreciation accounting. These both are altogether different. Okay, we will again understand what are all these. When I am done explaining, you already will understand what is the difference between these two. So give me some time till I explain these stuffs. Okay, so I will explain the approach 2 now. So what I will do now is like I will explain you approach 1 and approach 2 both with the help of an number example. Okay. So the example is, suppose that there is an asset costing rupees 1 lakh and the life of the machine is suppose 3 years. So let's change the cost to 90,000. Okay, for ease of calculation. The life is 3 years. Okay, so this is approach 1 now, and this will be approach 2. Approach, we can say, ways of depreciation accounting. The numbers will not change, it's just the method, just the approach will change, journal entries will change. Okay, so in year 1, the asset account has a balance. So in year 1, the asset account has a balance of rupees 90,000, right? And in this we pass depreciation entry of rupees, suppose say 30,000, right? We will assume that this 90,000 is allocated over 3 years equally. Let's assume this. Okay, so 30,000 each year we will charge as depreciation. So depreciation will be 30,000 here. Okay, so my value will become 60,000 at the beginning of year 2. Again I will charge depreciation costing rupees 30,000, right? And at the end of my life, at the end of the life of the asset, the year 3, at the beginning of year 3, the asset will have a cost of rupees 30,000 and depreciation we will pass of rupees 30,000 and the value becomes nil at the end of the life of the asset. Okay, this is called the normal approach 1 that we studied till now. Okay, now let us focus on approach 2. This was approach 1. Let us focus on approach 2 now. So 90,000 is the cost that will be remain here also same, but this depreciation will not come here, it will be nil, rather it will jump this and come here 30,000 negative balance. So this is an assets negative balance. Okay, so this the balance becomes 90,000 and this balance becomes negative 30,000 depreciation. Okay, then again this 30,000 will again be nil here and it will jump this asset account and then again go to depreciation account, negative 30,000 again. So it will become 60,000 and this balance will again show 90,000. Then again in third year this will jump, in asset account we will not charge any depreciation, nil, and it will jump this account and again go to depreciation account and become 90,000. So what is the thing? See, here it was nil, but here it is 90,000 full balance. there. So what is the difference that you noted? We are charging depreciation here also, in here we are charging depreciation here also, but we are charging depreciation in different account. In approach 1 we are charging depreciation in asset account, but in approach 2 we are charging depreciation in a depreciation account, and we are accumulating depreciation in this account. Since we are accumulating, hence we have renamed the name of depreciation to accumulated depreciation. Accumulated depreciation account. So but what is happening? Are the numbers getting changed? No. See, here the balance has 60,000. Here the balance is also 60,000. So this is an asset, and the negative balance of the asset becomes a liability. So we have recorded a corresponding liability of 30,000 and an asset of 90,000. So the net figure comes to 60,000 only. Going to second year. So the balance of the second year is 30,000. In this is the 90,000, but we have recorded a corresponding liability also for that. That is 60,000. That is 60,000. So again 90,000 minus 60,000, 30,000. The numbers are not getting impacted. But what is happening? This asset account has been broken into two parts. That is asset account and depreciation account. We will record purchase and sale of asset in one account, that is asset account, and depreciation related entries in accumulated depreciation account. Accumulated depreciation account. Sir, why this is being done? Why is this approach 2 being done? I'll tell you again, deviating from the topic. In the practical scenarios, this method is not followed. Only this method is followed. Only this method is followed. If you will in future you will appear for your interviews, if you say that this method is you have to follow this method, then they will say you are wrong, that this method is not followed in practical scenarios. Only this method is followed in practical scenarios. So why is this method followed? The reason is, if the asset account and depreciation account is kept separately, then the management can track what is the amount of capital expenditure they have done during the year and what is the amount of depreciation that they have charged. Seeing the balance, closing balance, they can say this. But comparing this closing balance with this closing balance in this method, so it will be a mix of purchase entry, sale entry, depreciation entry. So all the capital expenditures plus depreciation entries will be merged in one account. So that will not give us a correct picture. So for better presentation purposes, the numbers will be same in both the cases. But for better presentation, this method is followed in the correct. This method is followed. Okay. So this is our approach for depreciation accounting. Now we will study what are the different methods of depreciation, that how are we required to charge depreciation. Okay, let's focus on that now. Coming to methods of depreciation, these are the 5 methods of depreciation prescribed in our syllabus. Okay, but coming to practical, only these 2 methods are relevant. These 3 methods are not being followed in practical scenarios. Okay, so what are the methods of depreciation? I'll explain what is the meaning of that, what is the significance behind use of that method, like in which scenarios these methods will be used, and how do we need to calculate depreciation as per these methods. Okay, so coming to first, that is straight line method. So this method assumes that the asset will be used evenly throughout the useful life of the asset. Suppose the asset's cost is depreciable amount is rupees 90,000 and the useful life is 3 years. So this method assumes, that straight line method assumes that this 90,000 should be allocated equally over all the 3 years, because it assumes that the machine will be used evenly throughout, that this machine will be used like 10 hours in this year, 10 hours in this second year, 10 hours in third year, means equally over all the 3 years. This is the assumption of the first method. So how do we need to calculate depreciation as per straight line method? So suppose the depreciable amount is 90,000. So the depreciation for year 1, year 2, year 3, it will be same for all the years. That is 30,000 for year 1, 30,000 for year 2, and 30,000 for year 3. How we arrive at 30,000? 90,000 divided by 3 will be 30,000. So what is the drawback of this method? The drawback of this method is like this does not hold good in practical scenarios. Why? Because it cannot be the case that the asset will be used evenly throughout the whole life of the asset. Why? Because the use of the asset is more effective in the earlier years, that is in the initial years of the life of the asset. But as the machine grows old due to wear and tear of the asset, due to wear and tear of the machine, the capacity of the machine reduces. So what should actually happen? The machine should be depreciated higher in the initial years, because the machine is working at its optimum capacity, and the machine should be depreciated lower in the subsequent years. This drawback was satisfied by this method, that is written down value method. But before going to written down value method, I will tell you another name of this method, that is straight line method. Why? Because in the exams it may confuse you, because it has two names. So in exam they might not mention straight line method, it might say fixed installment method. You don't need to write anything as of now. I just want that whenever I am teaching, you should pay full focus on what I am teaching. For the notes perspective, I will give you the notes separately. But whenever I am teaching, I want your 100% attention on the board and on me, whatever I am speaking. So that will matter the most. Notes I will give you, and you need not take down now. Okay. So the straight line method, the another name of straight line method is fixed installment method. And for in straight line method, we need to charge depreciation equally over the useful life of the asset equally. Okay. And what was the drawback? The drawback was the asset cannot be operated at equal capacity in all the 3 years, because the asset will be in optimum capacity in the initial years of life, and as it grows old, the asset cannot be used at its actual capacity, because the capacity of the asset reduces. And this drawback of straight line method was overcome by written down value method. So what does it say? It says, suppose the depreciation rate is 20%. Depreciation rate is 20%. Then you have to charge depreciation at the rate 20% per annum. Okay. Then how you need to charge depreciation? You need to charge depreciation on 90,000 20%. That is 18,000 in the first year, and then you have to arrive. Let's make it 10% for the ease of calculation. Okay. Let's make it 10%. So in year 1, the depreciation is calculated as 9,000. In year 2, what was the balance? 81,000. 90,000 minus 9,000, 81,000. And then 10% of 81,000 becomes 8,100. So what is the difference in these two methods? The difference in these two methods was it assumed equal depreciation, but it mentions that charge depreciation as a percentage on the opening balance, of the current year, that is the closing balance of the previous year. That was the closing balance of the previous year. And again in the third year, it will 72,900. Then it will charge 7290 as depreciation. In the third year. So this was the written down value method. So again, now come to the third method of depreciation, that is depletion method. So before going to this method, I want to explain that in the practical scenario, only these two methods are being followed. But these three methods are followed not that significantly as these two methods. So, but we need to study because it is relevant from our exam perspective. Okay. Coming to depreciation method, where is this method used? This method is used in wasting assets. What are wasting assets? Wasting assets are the assets that are non-renewable sources of energy, non-renewable sources of energy, like coal mines, or gold mines, whatever it is. Okay, so what happens in this type of industry? So suppose the company has a coal mine, so it will estimate that how much coals can I extract out of this mine. Suppose the company makes an estimation that I will extract 9,000 tons of coal, 9,000 tons of coal over 3 years. First year, second year, third year. Okay, and the total cost of the coal mine was 90,000. In the first year, it extracted 5,000 tons. In the second year, it extracted 2,000 tons, and in the third year also it extracted 2,000 tons. So how will the depreciation be charged in this case? So in this case, what the company will do? Company will know that the cost of the coal mine was 90,000 divided what was the expectation of the total tons of coal that was expected. So that is 9,000 multiplied by what was the actual tons of coal that was extracted, that is 5,000. So the depreciation charge will be 50,000. Second year it will come again. The total cost of the coal mine was 90,000. Units expected were 9,000 and the tons extracted was 2,000. So it will give me 20,000 tons depreciation. Similar in the third year also. Similarly. So it gives us like what the depreciation is charged. The depreciation is charged on the basis of actual extraction of the tons. So the entity makes an expectation how much tons can I extract from this coal mine. Okay, and then it charges depreciation based on actual extraction of the coal. Second, and this machine hour rate method and production units method is also on the same grounds, but I will explain you what is it. Okay. So suppose the machine hour rate method. So in this, what happens whenever a company purchases any machine? So it estimates that the cost of the machine is 90,000 and I will use it for 9,000 hours. I will use it for 9,000 hours of over the useful life of the asset. So in the first year, the machine was used for 5,000 hours. And in the second year, the machine was used for 2,000 hours. And in the third year, the machine was again used for 2,000 hours. Accordingly, the depreciation was calculated for that also. The same way, the depreciation accounting was done. Now coming to third method, that is production units method. Same way this method is also done. When in this method, what happens whenever a company purchases a machine, what they do, they expect that how much units will I produce from this. So company expects that I will produce 9,000 units from this machine. 9,000 units from this machine. Then again, what was the actual units produced? On that basis, the company will charge depreciation on that. On that basis, the company will charge depreciation on that. On the basis of actual production of units. So this was the different methods of depreciation. Now, what we have to do? We have to focus. So on the how we need to charge depreciation, we studied that there were two estimates. Okay, there were two estimates. The first estimate was residual value, and the second estimate was useful life of the asset. So now you should have asked me question that time also that, sir, since you are telling that this is an estimate, then it can change also. Yes, it can change. Then how will we account for that change? Yeah, good question. So now we will study about what should we do if the estimate changes over the useful life of the asset, or if the useful life of the asset itself changes, then how should we account for that? Let us focus on that now. So we will explain this with the help of an example. Suppose the useful life, or suppose the depreciable amount. Suppose the depreciable amount. Okay, rather than that, we will take original cost. Cost of the machine is suppose 1,05,000, 1,10,000. Okay, 1,10,000, and residual value is 10,000. So what is the depreciable amount now? 1 lakh rupees. The useful life is 5 years. Useful life. Okay, we plot this on a number chart. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. What will be the amount of depreciation considering straight line method? We are just explaining this considering straight line method. So the depreciation will be 20,000 here, 20,000 here, 20,000 here, 20,000 and 20,000 here. So this was it. Now coming to what if the useful life changes. So at the end of year 2, okay, what if the useful life changes? So first tell me, the useful life changes from 5 years to 8 years. 5 years to 8 years, okay? Then tell me what was the written down value at the end of second year. So 1 lakh was the cost, 1 lakh was the cost, okay? 1 lakh, depreciable amount was rupees 1 lakh, and we charge depreciation on that minus 40,000. So the depreciable amount, written down value is 60,000 now. Correct? And the remaining life is now 3 years. Right? Remaining life is now 3 years. But this 5 years is not 5 years now. This is 8 years. 6, 7, 8. Then what is the remaining life now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then the remaining useful life is, see, the written down value is 60 years and the remaining useful life is 6 years. Then calculate the depreciation again. So 6 years, 60,000 by 6 years, the depreciation will become 10,000 per year. 10,000 per year. So it will not be 20,000, it will be 10,000. It will not be 20,000, it will be 10,000. It will be 10,000. It will be 10,000. It will be 10,000 now. This is how we do whenever the useful life of the asset changes. So what if the residual value gets changed? So the residual value, suppose the expectation was 10,000. Now the expectation increased at the end of year 2. So the life was not changed. Only the second. We are going to second illustration. So let us change it to original figures, 20,000, 20,000, 20,000. Okay. Now this is not changing. Second illustration. What is changing is the residual value. 5 years. It will be 5 years only. Okay. Residual value is changing from 10,000 to 20,000. Then what is the depreciable amount? It will change from 1 lakh to 90,000. Right? Then we will again make our assessment here. What is the written depreciable amount here? The depreciable amount will be 1,10,000 minus 20,000, 90,000. Okay, it was 90,000 minus what was the depreciation already charged? 40,000. So what is the written down value now? 50,000. How much is the life remaining? This is the written down value. What is the life remaining? 3 years. So now what we do? We need to allocate 50,000 over 3 years. one thing more, this was all about change in the estimates, because see, we told that the residual value and useful life of the asset are the estimate made by the management. So estimate are the expectations which can change going forward. So we should know how do we need to account for these, if these changes going forward, okay. So after we are done with this thing, then I need to tell you one more thing. For return down value method, there are two other names also, that is diminishing balance method or reducing balance method or return down value method. So you should not get confused in the exams whenever the names are changed like it can be used as synonyms to each other. So you should not get confused in the exam when the other names are being used. Hope you have understood this chapter. So if you have any queries in this chapter, you can contact me directly and we can discuss and solve that. Thank you.